fight, Mr. Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook. It's like, he doesn't want to let me on. I don't like him. It's not being fair. It's kind of like, be open. So I don't know how to introduce you. I mean, you have been, I'm an endodontist, but consumed with being able to restore the teeth properly. And you are teaching the world how to restore the teeth properly. So yeah. Even before we get into like the enormity of what you've done, is we were talking about your family, and your daughter is in communications
management of arts.
Of art.
Arts, yes.
So she's involved with museums and
yes,
galleries.
Yeah.
And she's in the right country if she wants to do that. I mean,
yeah, of course. We hope so.
Yeah, for sure. And your son has really followed in your footsteps. He's graduated. He's
graduated, and he's now in the last year, the master program in Prosto, and he's also doing the PhD in biotechnology. So he's going to finish in 1 year both.
Fantastic. So he is indeed following you.
Yeah, more or less, yes.
Well, but it's when your son follows in your footsteps, it's lovely, right?
Sure.
You've impacted. So
an extra motivation.
For sure. I want everybody to hear your journey through dental school, from the time that you began as a student to the time that you are what you are now. I just want to add this quickly before we go on. You are the author of 450 international publications. Yeah. So 450 publications, that probably takes you, I don't know, like how many weeks for one? So in your life, you have committed this unbelievable amount of time just to writing for your colleagues. That alone is staggering in and of itself. So how does this all begin, Marco? Where does Marco Ferrari, who's the student, he's just learning to get around, drives a car, he's having all kinds of fun. So how does this journey start?
Well, first of all, I'm a medical doctor. I graduated in medicine because at that time in Italy, there was not the undergraduate course in dentistry. There was not the degree in dentistry. So I took my degree as a doctor in medicine. And then I took the general specialty in the specialty in general dentistry. And then in 87, I complete my program in Italy. And then in between 87 and 88, I was at Tufts University in Boston, in the Prosto department for 1 year. And then when I was back between 92 and 95, I was in the PhD program in Amsterdam in dental materials with Professor Carol Davidson, that was my mentor. He's still one of the most important person in my life. And then in the meantime, in IT, I started my career in US in Tufts from a clinical instructor to, at the end, I was appointed research professor.
Well.
And in 1999. And then in 2000, I was appointed in Siena University as an associate professor. And in 2002, I was appointed full professor and then dean of the dental school.
Right.
Yeah. So that was, in short, my university career.
That's the beginning, but that's only the first step.
No, really, come on.
Well, but you went from there, and that was the first step. And then you went like you were running. It was like a marathon of education.
Mm-hmm.
How did you like Boston? Did you enjoy being in Boston back then?
Well, I'm going not so often, unfortunately, but I love Boston. It's probably the only town in US in which I would love to live.
Yes.
To me, it was a great time to be there. And of course, there is a real high concentration of top quality dentists and scientists in any field.
Right.
And also because the lifestyle in Boston is very, very similar to European style.
Really? Yeah.
So that is something that can help at the beginning to integrate a little bit and to know the habits and to feel comfortable, I would say.
Right.
Then I'm still in touch with Tufts University, but now I'm also involved partially in Rochester, where Rochester University, yeah, in which I'm a adjunct professor there. And there is a great prostate department, and is led by Professor Carlo Ercoli, that was a graduate of mine in Siena, and then he moved to the US.
Oh, so, it was your student that's become.
Yeah. And I'm very proud of him. Really proud of him.
Wow.
So I have a lot of connection with US still now.
Fantastic. And Amsterdam, also an interesting city, different.
Yes. You can learn a lot from Dutch people about, they really integrate different religion, different races in one country. They are very tolerant, but very pragmatic, really pragmatic. So if you are a scientist, you learn a lot also from life, I would say, about life.
Okay.
From them. And very concrete people.
So you travel all around the world now. And
yes.
Like literally around the world. So what's your favorite place to visit? Of all of them, is there one particular city, one particular university that you love to visit more than another?
Well, no, really. Honestly, I feel comfortable when I'm in US. Mm-hmm. In Boston in particular, of course, I'm very comfortable. But I'm traveling also in Asia. I'm also traveling a lot in Europe. Mm-hmm. I was for 4 years professor in Leeds University recently. I believe that anytime you travel, in any location you go, in any place you go, in our field, in our environment, you can learn a lot from people. And so that is an extra value for traveling. I found excellent research in Japan. I learned a lot in Leeds. Of course, in US, to me, is always to refresh and learn a lot. Right. So I would say that everywhere you can find something good.
Fantastic.
But I have not one specific location.
One place. Yeah. We're going to speak to Anil Kishan shortly next week. And he's from Singapore. He did a lot of his work in Singapore. Have you lectured there as well? I
lectured a couple of times in Singapore. In Singapore University, they have a huge, big university. Yeah. Very well organized. Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. I was in touch with, I don't remember the name, but anyway, with the restorative department.
Okay. Yeah. And so you've been to all these places. You've been the dean in Siena for almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years, yes.
Over 20 years. And so now you have 3 years until you are
I should stay around 3 years, and then I cannot be elected anymore. So I'm preparing somebody else taking care about the school.
Okay. So
I have already somebody else already.
Somebody's coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. I have very good staff, a very good faculty, relatively young. But I have people around 50 that are ready to take over the school for sure.
Really? So
and to relax a little bit.
Sir, you what?
And to relax myself a little bit.
Yeah, I would think so. Given what? Yeah, relax is interesting. I mean, I'm surprised you don't just sit down and collapse. Like
no.
So the whole premise of this is to know the man behind the podium. I guess that's one way of saying it.
Sure.
So I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question. You've passed the baton. You've handed the beginning to so many people, right?
Yeah.
So is this still a family for you? Do you still communicate with these people, exchange letters?
With the wide majority, yes. I can tell you that when I established my PhD in Siena, I exactly copied what I did in Amsterdam. I didn't invent anything. And I made an international program in 2002. And from that program, I already have around the world, around 28 graduated from my PhD. They are now professors somewhere.
Wow.
To me is the best I can do, to create people, to help people to show the talent, to become independent researcher, and then to lead another school or to lead another department, something like that. So that is my mission in the school.
Well, that's incredible.
But I am in touch with them, with the wide majority.
Do you do multi-center research with them as well?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you have a clinical practice?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Outside, but intramural?
Outside a couple of days per week. Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So I'm going to ask you about the 450 public.
Yeah. Okay.
450. How do you write that many papers in what is essentially?
Okay. It's easy to understand because if you go through my CV, you can see that when I'm the first author means that I'm the writer of the papers. At the beginning of my career, as anybody else, we are writing the paper. We are doing the research and writing the papers as well. Right. Right. And somebody is helping us, the mentor or co-authors. When I arrive at a certain position, I started to be the mentor of others. And I had so good PhD students that were really the engine of the school, that they performed a lot of research, they wrote a lot of papers. I was the mentor, so I was not writing with my hands.
Right.
So I was leading the research for them. And I am the co-author, I'm the last author, and the last author usually is the person in charge for the research.
But even doing that, I mean, it's, okay, a lot of they've done
I can tell you how I can do.
Okay,
because
please.
I just sleep 4 or 5 hours per night.
You read?
So I don't sleep so much, so I have time to read a lot.
Okay.
When the other people, they are sleeping still.
Well, that's kind of demanding when you think about it. I mean, this is obviously going to peer-reviewed journals. You're not writing fluff. So ultimately, it's your responsibility to ensure that everything is accurate, the statistics are valid, the conclusions are valid, that they have done sufficient review of the literature so that they can substantiate their findings. That's an enormous responsibility.
No, come on. We are not solving a war. I mean, we are just working as a human being. And so anyway, I'm in charge for my students, for my coworker, for my colleagues, but just helping them with my experience, nothing else. I mean, I have 2 goals in my life professionally. One is that they provide me a lot of satisfaction, a lot of self-esteem, I would say. When I have a good paper accepted in an imperfecta journal, in an international journal, and when I treat my patient. Right. So these are the 2 main goals I have. And to write the paper, I mean, for scientists to write the paper, perform a study, and then to write the paper and to have accepted means that what you did will remain available.
Right.
It might be criticized, of course, but might be available for anybody. So,
well, as I say, I was looking at your, okay, this is what really hit when I was looking at all this. In addition to all of this, you are also, your passion is dental materials and biotechnology. Yeah. Right. So how did that, you were a prosthodontist in Boston, you were trained to be a prosthodontist. Who in Boston, that was the era of Jerry Kramer, was the periodontist?
No, yes, there was still Jerry Kramer, but Jerry Kramer was at Buell, I was at Tufts.
You were at Tufts.
So I was with Lloyd Miller, I was with Gino
Lloyd Miller, right?
Yes, with Lloyd Miller, that was a millstone in dentistry, in prosto. So I was with Gino Passamonti, that was the prosthodontist at that time for denture. So the staff was mainly on these 2, and then many others, of course.
Right. So end of the 80s. So George Zarb had already done his retrospective study on the Brandenburg implants. So I wasn't in school then, but I had gotten to know Dr. Zarb because He was the head of prosthodontics, and he was also a mentor. He was an amazing man.
Absolutely. He's a visiting professor in our school. He's a
Was
very
he?
good friend. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
He had, who did he have? He had Aaron Fenton, Phil Watson,
yeah, sure.
Jerry, I can't remember his name, who was the surgeon that did all the work. And that was amazing. He set implants in North America into play. So it's now what, like 8-10 years later, and you're at Tufts, Lloyd Miller and all these amazing people. And so had implants really taken hold when you were there?
When I was there, they were the first implants used in the school. At that time, the chair of restorative was asking us, and then there was Chapman, there was Jerry Kugel, very good friend of mine already. So, and we used 3i implants.
Okay.
But we were really at the beginning, 87, 88, we were really at the beginning. So we saw that implants exist at that time.
Okay.
So we were not working on that. At least myself, I didn't work on that.
So as a prosthodontist, dental materials, biotechnology, has your research focused a lot on implantology?
At the moment, yes.
At the moment.
In the last 10 years, yes.
Okay.
Because at the beginning, I studied a lot about bonding, partial crowns, resin composite, post, and something like that. And then in the last 10 years, we switched to zirconia, desilicate, implants, abutments, and of course now digital.
So you've seen everything literally from its infancy to now. So you've gone.
Yeah, I'm old enough.
I don't know about that, but age is in the mind, not so much in the body. So you started off when, external hex. I remember Dr. Zarbit was they used to call it the pier at high tide. They didn't care if the implants were showing above the tissue, they put the prosthesis on. So you've gone through that period. The Branimark 3i, Straumann was already available at that time, I think.
Yeah.
With the companies were just starting to grow into it. So you've watched it begin with this, like a baby, like, it's starting to crawl. Eventually it learns to walk, and eventually it learns to run. So in the last 10 years, you've been doing research at a point where implants really came, huge, right?
Yeah.
All on X, single tooth, pterygoid, zygomatic implants, the ability to reconstruct the jaw, soft tissue. So all of these things have suddenly burst like a flower, bloom. Yeah. So how do you feel about all this? You're doing the research. Are you concerned that there are too many claims? Too many people saying this is wonderful, this is the bullet, the magic bullet. Given your background, what do you feel is going on?
Well, it's very composite situation or picture we can make, because personally, I'm still respecting a lot the tissue. I'm trying the periodontal tissue. I'm, as a prosthodontist, I'm saying, I'm still trying to save natural teeth as much as I can. So I'm much more in favor to retreat endodontically a tooth.
I'm so glad to hear this.
Just to make you happy, of course.
All right.
Just to make you happy.
All right.
But I'm not joking. So our approach is very conservative when we can. Also because in literature is demonstrated that an endodontic retreated tooth has longevity like an implant, at least, not less. So, of course, then we have chief complaint of the patient, what they want, what the patient wants, what they expected, aesthetic complication or expectation of the patient. So we have, at the moment, a very wide horizon for everybody. We have a lot of options to offer to the patient.
Right.
I'm sure that doesn't exist the ideal treatment, because everybody of us in front of the same clinical situation probably will take a choice for something different. It's very exciting because we have at the moment through new materials, new surgical procedure, digital. We have a very exciting era for dentistry. We honestly need to keep in mind that we have to leave the patient solvent. So solvent, we have to also to consider that the patients are not a sort of bank in which you go with your card and you take money. So we have to also to think about cost and benefits. So that is important. I'm telling you that because I'm working in private practice as a practitioner, as a dentist, but in the school, I'm in a public school. So I see the two faces of the reality. If you work in a good office with tradition, at the third generation, so you have a number of patients that they are well educated, I would say, and ready to have the best treatments or so on. When you work also in a public school, so you also need to be a little bit flexible to understand that the patient, they don't have so much money to be spent on dentistry. So we have to consider also the patient, not only what we know, what we like, what we want to do for our self-esteem, but also what the patient wants.
Right.
And I'm saying that because too often we bring the patient forward what we want.
Right. Okay. Well,
so we need a little bit, and then of course we have other situation pushing us in some direction. Think about insurances.
Yes.
So,
is there a lot of insurance in Italy? Is there?
In Italy, they are starting now, private insurance, but I'm working under the umbrella in the school, under the umbrella of the national health system.
Okay.
That guarantee the essential treatment, dental treatment to everybody. And so, for instance, you are an endodontist. We made recently in my school, last days, an endosurgery.
Okay.
So the patient pay less than $100 for that.
Okay.
Can you believe that?
No, because
because we are social protecting people.
Okay.
As a tendency we have, as a trend we have in the public school. So we don't cover the cost of dentistry in the hospital.
Right.
So we see different faces of the same problem. You know.
That's great. I mean, that's not common. You know, the prosthodontics, I think, in the United States, they're more inclined to remove rather than sustain, to keep.
Yeah.
Do you get subsidized by the companies at all? And people, like, you work for an enormous range of companies.
Yeah.
So did they subsidize you, provide you grant money to keep this ongoing because of the research?
Not for patients. I mean, if we are doing a clinical trial, yes, of course.
Okay.
When they want to do a clinical trial, they pay for that, of course. They pay the hospital, they pay the university, not us, I mean, but they cover the cost of but the cost of the hospital, not the cost of you have in our practice.
Isn't it worth their trouble to sustain you having product so that you can pass, well, you don't, if they provide the product, you don't have to charge the patient. So they could literally have longitudinal retrospective studies going back 10 years, whatever. Yeah. It's not to their benefit. They don't see that as being valuable.
Well, we are jumping in an issue that is not my issue, essentially, but I know a little bit. Any company has to launch a new product periodically, yes. Okay? Right. Think about that at beginning of 2000, one company launched 5 bonding systems in 2 years. 5 bonding systems in 2 years, the same company. When happens something like that, of course, they launch the first and the second, and maybe they invest some grants on that, but in 1 year, that material became obsolete because now they are interested in the new one. So nobody wants to collect the data, nobody wants to know what is going on. Right. So in reality, we talk a lot about evidence-based dentistry, but In medicine is another story. In dentistry, too many products, they disappear too quickly in order to have really evidence-based dentistry.
So why does that happen? What are your thoughts? Why would
Marketing.
a company, huh?
Marketing.
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 So they release products that they really can't substantiate with long-term research, and they release 5 and 2 years. So
that is because for some products, I'm not talking about lithium disilicate, for instance. We have a long tradition, a long documentation on clinical trial on that. But think about bonding. When the American Dental Association accepts provisionally the product in the market after 1 year, so what they want the company is to have 1 year result, not 5 years or 10 years.
Okay.
If the product became a point, a reference for dentists, they keep in the market. Otherwise, they leave it and they jump in the new one.
So the dentist, well, it's interesting because the dentist can only go by the marketing, because the marketing is aggressive. They,
Absolutely.
you know, very aggressive.
Absolutely.
So they take the mindset of the dentist from focusing on the science so that they understand why this is working, you know, in what situations could it be compromised. And all of a sudden you've got these beautiful journals and brochures and they're this and they're that. And so that instead of looking at the science, they suddenly began to look at the marketing. And it prejudices their perspective, don't you think?
Yeah.
They treat based on what looks good rather than what is good, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of pressure on that.
There is pressure, sure. Everybody has to make money. And,
we have to understand.
Yeah. So you're talking about endo, which I think is really interesting. Were you influenced when you were at Tufts by the people in Tufts at that time? Was Cyril Gom, right? Was Cyril Gom, or was who was at Tufts at that time? I mean, Schilder was there in the 80s and BU. There was Van Zissi, I think.
Yes.
There was,
I don't remember the name.
Yeah. But were they integrated with the prosthodontic department? Was
at that time, not so much.
Not so much.
Time, not so much. We were much more integrated with periodontists at that time.
There you go.
I remember that. But anyway, I didn't do the postgraduate completely. I just took 1 year.
1 year, right.
So I remember that we had treatment planning with periodontists very often,
right.
But with endo less. Much less. Ortho much less. Yeah.
Ortho much less. Yes. Okay, so
I suppose that now they are much more integrated.
Right. And in your school in Siena, is that the case? Your prosthodontist?
Well, in our school it's much easier because it's not a big school. We have 40 students per year in undergraduate. So the periodontist, myself, and the endodontist, we are and dean of the oral hygiene school. We are all together in the same area. We have the office. We are friends, so we talk continuously. So for us to be integrated is very, very easy.
Yeah. So there's so many incredible endodontists in Italy. I mean, they are the
absolutely.
Fabio Borni, Castellucci, Gambarini, Platino, Grand, and so many others. Do they influence the direction and the integration of endodontics, prosthodontics, and perio? Do you feel
of course, they have influence on that. They do a great job, all of them that you mentioned, and many others. Yeah. The quality level is very, very high. And we have an Italian Society of Endo that is very active. And then there is another society, another scientific society that is the Academy of Italian Academy of Endo. Okay. So I'm sure I'm so lucky I have Simone Grandini in my school as an endodontist, and so the quality is very good, and we integrate a lot.
That's fantastic.
We work a lot together in Siena for sure.
In Siena for sure. Yeah, that's
Siena
amazing.
For sure.
Yeah, it's. I was at the University of Toronto, and it was disturbing that the continuum to perio and prosthodontics wasn't strong. But you know,
by the people.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's there are a lot of endodontists in the United States right now are kind of putting their foot down and saying, okay, I did the root canal, I do the prosthetics, or at least the build up to get things ready to do what's required. So you mentioned digital. Is it influencing everything? Prosthodontics, periodontics, I know in endodontics, CBCT, dynamic and static navigation. How have you been able to integrate that in the school?
Well, first of all, for a prostodontist in the program of Prosto, in the master program in Prosto, my residency, you cannot escape to use digital pieces. Mm-hmm. That for sure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the cost of digital dentistry is still too high. Okay. And only, in my knowledge, in US, like also in Europe, around 8%. 8%. 8%. They have an intraoral scanner. Yeah. So if you don't start with the intraoral scanner, yeah, you don't do digital.
Right.
You take traditional impression, and then you deliver the impression to the lab, and the lab is going to scan.
Right.
And then making the workflow in the lab. So we are trying to educate the dentists to use the digital devices. Very often is underestimated the learning curve of each of them.
Right.
Because probably you and me, in our age, we need more time than a younger guy that he grew up with computer, smartphone, and so on. I noted that my young student, my student, they are much younger than me, of course. They learn very quickly, but we have a limitation on these devices, so we cannot do everything. We still have limitation, and with this kind of technology we have now, although the technology is running fast, but we cannot expect to solve all the problems with digital scanner. About CBCT made a great jump forward in quality, for sure, in surgery, in endo, in everything.
Yeah.
To understand what we are going to do, for instance,
sure.
diagnostic and then in therapy.
Yeah, the treatment
so plan. We cannot stay far from them, but companies now, they are, in my view, suffering a little bit the pandemic around, and we'll see, but the future is this. I don't feel that is already the present. So that
okay.
Because only few dentists, they work on that.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you look at Facebook, that's all you see. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
but if you look the number of the market, 8% in Italy, 8% in Europe, around 8% in US, and then so that is something that makes me thinking about.
Right. So what I do want to talk about is Zerodonto.
Yes.
So how does it start? How is it?
Okay, I can introduce you to the owner of Zerodonto. I'm not an owner of Zerodonto. I'm working a lot with Zerodonto. The owner are Fabio Cozzolino, Roberto Sorrentino, and Anna Marinello. The first is a surgeon, the second is a prostodontist, and the third, she's an orthodontist, and from Naples. And Fabio invented a certain time, more than 10 years ago, Zerodonto, when nobody was thinking about social so much.
Yeah.
And they made a tremendous job, really tremendous job. They got almost 1 million of followers in Facebook and so on. And in particular, I was in touch with them because Roberto Sorrentino was firstly PhD, a student of mine. And then for a period of time, he was assistant professor in my department, but being from Naples, now he's associate professor in Naples University. So he's back home. And I cry when he left, but of course, absolutely, it's great. It's great.
Okay.
Really.
Okay. Amazing.
I suggest you to be in touch with them because he's a very nice person. He's 40 or something like that.
I don't know them.
He's one of the best prostodontists we'll have in the next 20 years.
Well, I will. Every time I speak to somebody, the network grows bigger and bigger. And
we cooperate a lot with Zerodonto, but I'm so we are doing different goals together, and so it's very nice because they are very efficient, and then we develop a strong friendship that can help a lot. And so and then also I have a very good relation with Stile Italiano group.
Oh, amazing, amazing.
Angelo, Walter, and all others.
Yeah, Angelo actually contacted me yesterday, and I'm not sure how he got to me, but you know, 250,000 followers. Zero Danto has 1 million. These are powerhouses. I mean, for people to watch.
Yeah, but they have. I mean, they are not competing because they do a different job. If you look the pages, they do a different job. They are not doing the same.
Right.
So in my view, they both did a great job, really. Probably, I don't know exactly, but in my knowledge, they are the two biggest group in the social in dentistry.
They are, yes.
And so it's amazing that they are both in Italy.
No, because I think it's like the Renaissance in art, sculpture, and literature.
We need it. We need it.
Yeah,
we need it.
I think the Italians, I think percentage-wise, the Italians are far more represented in terms of what's going on in the world of dentistry. It just, again, we have a dental renaissance going on. And
talking seriously, we have, I mean, a lot of people in my age and younger that they were educated outside the country for a long time.
Right.
Now we have a university system, academic system that is much better than it was young. So, and then we have more than 35 years ago was established the dental school, because at that time we didn't have the dental school. You have to take the degree in medicine and then to take the general specialty in dentistry. So now we have a student focusing on dentistry for 6 years.
Right. Okay.
So it's, of course, it's much better. But anyway, we are competing. We can compete with others.
I mean, I spoke to Roberto Rossi. I just spoke to Marco Maiolino. So Dr. Rossi is amazing. I mean, what a gentleman. He was incredible. So there's Zucchelli, Palacci, the Tomorrow Tooth group that came with it is building very nicely. So yes, you know, Italy is a powerhouse. It's, you know, it's a very strong driver for all of the changes that are going on in dentistry. So when you work with Zero Danto, is it a stimulus for research as well?
No, Zero Danto is not doing research. It's promoting. I mean, is great tool for communication, for sure. But this kind of group are maybe clinical group. Okay. There is now a project on Stile Italiano to make Stile Italiano research. Okay. So parts in which we are going to build some research and to support the procedure and material used daily by dentists. Right. But Zero Danto is not doing this part.
It's not.
He's not interested on research. We do research, myself or Roberto, as a research in university, but we don't have a specific project on research on Zero Danto.
Do the universities like in Bologna, in Rome, like Sapienza,
yes.
Do you collaborate throughout the country?
Well, I was for many years the president of the Italian Dean Association, so I know all of them.
Right.
And, we have around good friends, and we are not so many in the academic field. So when it's possible, of course, we compete, but also we cooperate.
You cooperate. Yeah. Fantastic.
For instance, we have a strong cooperation with Naples, with Milano University, also with Genova and Torino. So, of course, that depends also the personal relation and the field in which we are working. But right. I feel I have a very good relation with any school in Italy.
So I do have a question. I hope this doesn't sound silly. Is Ferrari a common name?
Yes, it
is common.
Yes.
So that's how you know, does it relate to Modena, the car? Like, what is
Okay,
it all about?
I tell you a joke, but it's not a joke. It was a real, is it true? When I was a student in Boston, many people asked me about that.
Yeah.
And my answer was, if I was relative of Ferrari car or somebody of Ferrari car, I was not here studying dentistry.
Totally not. No, absolutely.
No, my family name is coming from that area, from
Modena.
the area in which there is the factory,
Okay.
but we have no relation at all, unfortunately.
Okay. And Ferrari, what does that mean? Iron? Is that like something to do with
Yes,
Ferro?
like
Means something to do with iron. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question that, given your background, given what you've done throughout your career, is probably the most important question that could be asked of someone like you.
MC.
Post-COVID dentistry. Post-COVID dentistry. What's it going to look like? What's your perspective on how it's going to impact upon education, clinical practice, research?
Tell me again. Tell me again.
When COVID is under control, you know,
Yes.
we can all go back to work, we can all go back to school, we can get on with our lives. What do you think dentistry is going to look like in clinical areas, research areas, congresses, all of the things that we took for granted for years? All of a sudden, it may not look the same. So
from now, you mean?
From this point on.
Okay. We'll continue to work. Well, we have to relocate everything because, of course, the pandemic changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Changed a lot about social relation, changed a lot about high habits. And although we are waiting for a couple of weeks to get freedom again in Italy.
Yeah.
But I believe that we'll need at least a couple of years to come back. Yes. Think about any big room for Congress. Okay.
Yeah.
Think about this. In Italy, we'll have to respect in the future social distance. They call 2 meters from each person.
Right. So
that means that in a room of 1,000 persons, you lose immediately one line yes and one line not. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because the social distance.
Yes.
And in the line in which you sit the people, you lose one place, one seat every 2.
Yes.
So that means that you'll have available no more than a quarter of the room.
Yeah.
So that means less attendance.
Mm-hmm.
And this means less sponsors.
Yeah.
So that will make a big change immediately.
Right.
The second point is I'm in the Supreme Court of Health. That is the board of the Minister of Health in Italy. We are only 30 in the country. I'm the only dentist. And we are involved for the future, how we can organize and so on. We know that the vaccine will come probably in no less than 1 year.
Right.
When we'll have it, we'll have to vaccinate more than, millions and millions and millions of people. First of all, we have to produce the vaccine and then to deliver the vaccine. That takes time.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm worried that we'll have at least a couple of years to be completely back to the past.
Right.
And in this period, of course, private practice may suffer, research may suffer because we'll have for sure less grant from companies, less grant from countries, from public organizations. So we have to, I would say, for a couple of years to keep the position.
So Italy.
But we'll look for clinical dentistry and research as well.
Okay. So it's quite frightening. Italy's economy was not in the best shape before the virus hit. Yes. So what's Italy's economy going to look like after the virus? How's it going to recharge, renew, begin again when the virus is sort of under control? Well,
I'm not a politician. I cannot answer you for sure. I can only give you my feeling.
For sure.
My feeling is for sure that the country is already worse than 2 months ago or 3 months ago, for sure.
Yeah.
Financially, I'm talking financially. And we'll need several years to recover, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we are talking about dentistry. We are talking about what dentists can do, how they can protect themselves, how they can clean the room, the chair, and so on. But what about how much patient will come back?
Right.
Because dentistry has a cost.
Yep.
So I believe that for a couple of years, we'll be obliged to keep the position in any environment, any field. And to recover as a country, we'll need 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years.
Yes, because think about that in our country, tourism is one of the most important industry.
Right.
And now nobody's traveling anymore.
Right.
So we have to restart to offer our beauty to foreigners.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's, I mean, airlines are literally, they're selling planes in the United States.
They are collapsing.
They're collapsing. The cruise lines, which were huge, also same problem. So if you had one wish right now, somebody, your fairy godmother came down and, or godfather, whatever it happens to be, came down and said, I am going to grant you one wish. And this pertains to your profession, your family. What would it be? What would you want
about
to
the general situation or personal situation?
Personal, general, your prefer, like
Let's talk about general situation.
Okay.
General situation is I would love to have therapy for the virus.
Right.
Not the vaccine, the therapy.
Therapy.
Proper therapy. If we have a proper therapy, that will become like any disease we have.
Correct.
We can treat.
Yes.
Exactly. We'll be not worry about that anymore, and we'll start immediately. If we have to wait for the vaccine, we have to wait a couple of years, and that make everything restarting and the engine at the high temperature. Yeah. So personally, well, just to stay in a good health and to continue to play my next 30 years at least.
Okay. And how much?
Living every day like is the last, you know?
Okay, I hear you. That's amazing. I'm going to ask you another question, and this will be the last. If you had the opportunity to hear one dentist, now I'm not prejudicing your relationship with people, but if you had the opportunity to hear one dentist present and to learn from them, would there be, who would that be? Who would that person be? In your estimation, somebody that you...
Well, there are many. We have many colleagues that are outstanding. But, if I would like to listen to somebody, I would like to listen again in the podium, Carol Davidson, my mentor. Yes.
Your mentor.
Yes.
Lovely.
Yes. But not talking about dentistry because he's 80 now, 81 or 82.
Oh, really?
But about life.
About his life in dentistry.
Yes. No, his life.
His life. Wow, that's something. You still speak with him? You still communicate?
Not frequently, but yes, we were in touch recently about pandemia, just to know how they are, how we are, and so on. Probably is I would love to listen him again or to meet him again.
Right. So he was your mentor in the early 90s, correct? That's when you first...
Exactly.
So 30 odd years later, he still is one of the most pivotal people in your life in terms of motivation. Is that right? What member of him has given you direction?
Everybody of us has people, they motivate us or they help us really a lot. Somebody are in the family, somebody are outside the family. Right. In dentistry, where for sure, my mentor and my father-in-law as well.
Really?
Yes, he helped me a lot at the beginning. He was an eminent dentist in my area, so he permitted me to be in a position that I was no worry about to making a new office or something like that. So that is a great start I had, honestly.
Good, nice.
And then I had, I would say that all of people they teach me and the people they work with me, my colleagues in the school, for instance, all the people they took the PhD with me, they teach me a lot,
Right.
Because, professionally and personally.
It's interesting to hear how you describe things. As incredibly successful as you have been, it's the family of people professionally that are around you.
Yeah,
you
at the beginning was that.
Yeah, you haven't, and you've now become the, what do they call this? The paterfamilias. You are the.
Oh my God.
Well, you are. You know, you've got this enormous extended family. I want to thank you for this. I mean, I appreciate it. This was amazing to get to know you, and hopefully, I don't know how many people watch this, but for everybody to see who you really are, because you're obviously one of the most generous, most uniquely talented, and your work product. Just looking at your CV, it's like you've dabbled in everything. Not just dabbled, you've actually been responsible and contributed. You have the broad range of what you do. It's staggering. And I thank you for taking the time. This is amazing.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, really.
Pleasure with you, Marco. So I'm going to say goodbye, and then this has been recorded. So we'll put this back on other forums. And you're an inspiration to a lot of people, my friend.
Oh. You're very kind.
You are. Okay. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy. Pleasure.
You too.
Love you.
Thank you.
That's so good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.